Fantastic. Well, welcome to the latest episode of our podcast. We are joined here with Jack Smith, and I'm quite excited actually because we kind of bumped in the middle of nowhere, and today we're in the city of Manchester, your town, and very excited for the podcast.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me on and coming up to Manchester to have a conversation.
No, fantastic. So, sweetheart, obviously Jack has done quite a lot of things, but what has he done? So people understand and know.
Yeah, it's a really cool thing. So I was looking it up, and you're just 5 years into your property journey, but in that time, you've raised 30 million in property deals, which is incredible.
Yeah, we've been involved in £30 million worth of property transactions over the past 5 years.
It's amazing.
I mean, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
How did you do that?
That's a pretty broad question. It varies really. It's done a few different things. The different property strategies that I've done are around deal packaging, house flipping. The very first thing I did was a house flip with a friend, and buying some houses to rent out, HMO properties. We've sold an apartment block, just all sorts of bits and pieces really. So that just amassed to a pretty crazy number after 5 years.
Yeah. And it's not just that, because you've got your YouTube channel as well. You're in season 2, right, of your property podcast?
We're in the middle of filming season 2, yes, and hopefully we'll be coming out before summer.
Yeah, very exciting. So you've done a lot of different things, and we want to go right back to the start. And I think you said you thought you had this brainwave when no one had ever done it before, and you thought, I could buy something, rent it out, this is amazing, but turns out that's property investment. So let's go back to there. How did it all start?
Yeah, so I like you say, I had this brainwave. I was left a little bit of money and had saved up a little bit of money, and was told, obviously, like most people, buy a house, live in it, pay off your mortgage as quickly as possible, and retire on a good pension and get a good job and all that stuff. And so I thought to myself, okay, buying a house is a good move. However, I was, I think, 18, 19 years old, and I thought, I don't know where I want to live yet. I don't think I want to settle down. I'd moved down to Birmingham for a little bit. I was in a relationship with somebody who is now my wife, but we were kind of not sure where we were going to settle. So I was like, okay, so I want to be buying a house. I want to be buying some bricks and mortar and want to be paying it off as soon as possible. But I don't want to live there. And it kind of triggered this idea in my head where I thought, what if I bought an apartment in Manchester and I put a tenant in there who was basically paying off my mortgage. So then I can go around the world, do whatever I want, live where I want, and just almost forget about it and have, from today, somebody paying off a mortgage. And I thought it was a really, really revolutionary idea. And as I started going around speaking to some friends of mine, they were like, yeah, you do know that's called like a buy-to-let? And I was like, what's that? No idea about it at all. And just started looking into it, researching it, watching YouTube videos, reading books, and found that, obviously, that as we know now, there's a lot of people out there making money on this, not just paying down some mortgages, but like making profit every month, getting cash flow that replace their salaries, that give them flexibility and freedom. People flipping houses, and it just as I started looking into it, the more I looked into it, my eyes were just open to this crazy world that is property investing, and I was like, I'm hooked. I want to be involved somehow.
Yeah, no, I love that. So what made you decide then, okay, this is what I'm going to do? How did you kind of make that transition from maybe your day-to-day or what you studied into property? Because that's a big change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I never went to university. I went to college. Hated school, hated college. I feel like naturally I'm quite smart, if you can say that.
Take it, claim it, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll say so.
Yeah, like I'm kind of like, average to was it high achiever? So I think I'd be like, I didn't really study. I didn't really, what's it called? When
like
you revise for a test. I didn't really do a lot of that, but I still came out with like C's and B's in GCSE and then college was the same. I literally was the first year of people who had to go to either do an apprenticeship or go to college.
18 years old.
Yeah, so I wasn't allowed to leave education at the end of high school. So I just did college at the most relaxed college possible so that I could just walk off campus and not go to my lessons.
Yeah.
I just was like, I do not want to be here. So I did that at school, at college, and then I ended up going into a gap year. So I worked with a Christian charity called the Message Trust in Manchester, and would kind of go to schools and go to youth groups and share my faith and run kind of youth clubs and all that sort of stuff, and kind of travelled around the UK, went to South Africa and worked with some people there, went into the prisons there where Nelson Mandela spent time and got to spend time with the inmates, and just had a really eye-opening year. Loved it so much that I did a second gap year because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And from there, that took me to Birmingham. I was living in Manchester at the time, moved to Birmingham. And it was in Birmingham that I was just working fairly normal job, but still had this idea of property in the back of my head. I hadn't actioned anything that I thought about. I hadn't started buying anything. I wasn't really sure what the next steps were. I just thought, it's something I want to do in the future. I went to a church with somebody who actually became a really good mentor to me. And someone said to me, oh, you should speak to this guy if you want to get into property because he really knows what he's talking about. He's called Nick. And I've made videos with him and chatted with him a little bit on social media, but he was really pivotal for me. So I did some property education, property training. Didn't really go very well. Met up with Nick and spent an evening with him. Just went round to his house, we had a cup of tea and a biscuit and chatted. And literally that evening, I walked away with so much knowledge that I was like, this has completely shifted everything for me. I wanna just get straight into this. And Nick kind of took me under his wing and said, look, if you buy the house, I will do the renovation, we'll flip it and we'll split the profit. You'll get the whole experience. You'll know it's going to be a good deal. You know there's going to be profit in there. And you get the experience of learning on the job.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and that's how I did my very first property deal. It was a house flip.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
No, I just want to pick up on one thing: the power of a mentor, right? Because the power of a mentor is so key. And also, when you spoke about doing your gap year as well, opening yourself to different experiences, going to South Africa, going around the UK, and I think a big part of what we speak about is opening your mind to what you can achieve. So yeah, that's really good to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what the gap years did for me was made me realise it was a bit of like a self-discovery couple of years of realising who I am and what I believe, and but also quite an eye-opening time of realising that there is a world beyond South Manchester. You know, and loads of people find that time in university and they go and live in a different city and spend that time becoming independent. For me, that was my 2 gap years. I moved out and I just went around the world and went around the country, and it just opened my eyes to different opportunities.
Love
and
that.
It was great.
Yeah, it sounds great. I'm an advocate for gap years. I did
Good.
1 year. I wanted to do another one, but I didn't quite get there. So, yeah, I agree.
I know people who managed to get like 5 before people like, you need to get a job now. And I managed 2 and then got a job.
Yeah, no, it's still good. I love that. That's really cool. You were saying something though. I cut you.
Yeah, no, I think the key thing that kind of really stood out to me is those experiences really formed the way you saw life. And as you said you went to your property education crash course or something as such, and you said that it didn't quite work out for you. And you said that you went over to your friend's or your mentor's house and then you was able to spend the evening. So, but what really clicked in, or you would say that now as compared to going to all those crash courses? Because I think it's quite unique what you've gone through.
Yeah. Do you know what it was? It sounds really silly. When I first got into property and started learning about property, I knew that it would be a good idea to get educated, because my view on it was, I'm going to invest money in education to reduce the risk of me losing a lot of money.
Got it.
So I'm going to spend money to save money. It was my thought process. So I spent about £10,000-15,000 on property education, and got to the end of this year and was like, I feel like I've learned a lot. I mean, when I first started, I didn't know what a mortgage was. I didn't get any.
Actually, was brand new to it.
Literally didn't have a clue. Like, family aren't in it. Family don't talk about it. It was not something that we like. I wasn't brought up in it. Didn't know anybody who was in it. So it was all brand new to me. And yeah, I had this year and thought, I haven't learned what I thought I was going to learn because there's just a few missing pieces and just simple concepts. I know it sounds crazy. Like, one of the things that was the biggest thing that just kind of blew my mind was when I sat down with Nick. I was showing him a few deals or ideas of what I thought were good property deals at the time, and he was saying, this isn't a good deal. And I was like, why not? He was like, because you're buying them at the market value, hoping that when you renovate them, that they'll be worth more. You're living in hope value, hoping that it'll be worth more. And he said, you need to remember this phrase, the profit is in the purchase. And as soon as he said that, I was like, I know that sounds so stupid, but in a whole year of education and mentoring and £15,000 later, nobody had said that to me. I was like, that is just such common sense. How have I not picked up on that? Of course that's the case. Like, this glass here might be worth like £1. If I can buy it for 50p, then
You're in double money.
yeah, the profit's in the purchase. And so, like, it's the same with houses. If you can find a house that's worth 200,000 and you're spending 200,000 on it, and then you're going to renovate it and hope it's worth more, well, what if you bought it for 150? Then the profit that you're going to make is done as you buy it. So, and just little tips like that, really, we spoke about, and they were just eye-opening opportunities and eye-opening ideas and concepts that never quite landed in the other training that I got.
No, common sense isn't common. That's a big exercise.
Yeah, it's based on the community. That's what I like to say. Common sense is not common, but it's based on the community. You can only expand as far as the glass ceiling that you have in the people you surround yourself with. So,
and there is an element of it is common sense, but also you don't know what you don't know. So until someone tells you and explains it to you, those concepts, those ideas, those bits of knowledge, how are you supposed to just know that unless you either experience it or you're taught it from someone else's experience?
sure.
Fully agree with that. And it's good to hear, because I think it just confirms, like you said, your community is so important, mentoring is so important, and being humble enough to ask too. That's really important as well. So that's cool. Okay, so that's kind of your start. So what are we in then? Year 2, year 1 of your property journey?
At this point, probably year 1.
Yeah, year 1.
Yeah, like I'd spent a year learning this stuff. I start my property journey as the point of when I started investing in education, because in that year I hadn't done a deal, but I had got all the way up to the signing of contracts. I'd gone up to doing rent to rent HMOs, rent to rent service accommodations. I was, getting all the way up to getting the deal done, and just didn't quite work it out. So the first deal I did was in year 2, but my property journey was that first year.
I think that's really encouraging, because a lot of people, they want to start, and like you said, you didn't know anything when you started, so that's firstly super encouraging, because some people feel, I haven't come from money, I don't know what property is, I don't know what mortgage is, but it doesn't mean you can't do it, so that's really good. And then the second thing is that, so now you're on your first deal, in the second year. What was the biggest thing you learned from that first deal?
Biggest thing I learned from that was that taking action and just doing it is the only way that you will ever feel confident in carrying on and doing more. So if I hadn't done that first deal, and I was so blessed that I had someone come in and say, I will put money in, I will teach you how to do it, let's do this together. That joint venture aspect is so worth it. And I say to anybody who has money, if you want to get into property but you have no idea what you're doing, find someone who does, who has a track record and experience. Just say, I will pay for the deal. I will put all the money in. Just show me, how did you find the deal? How did you do the refurb? How did you manage the builders? How did you know what it was going to be worth at the end? How did you get it sold? How did you stage the property? Everything like that. Because just by doing it, even if you make no money, you will have so much more confidence from it. I always say to people, if I walked away and had made no profit on that first deal, I would still have done it 100 times over, because just by going through the process, you learn so much.
Yeah.
God.
No, there's a scripture where you say, it says, it's in Proverbs, it's to buy knowledge but don't sell it. And that's what you did. Exactly what you did.
Knowledge is more valuable than gold and silver as well, which I think is the key thing. I think one thing that is very powerful to what you did is that, number one, you didn't just find someone that aligned to your values, but you also found someone that was doing what they were doing. And on the back of that, you end up having an opportunity which you pretty much jumped on, and that kind of kick-started your journey. But before that, you still invested. I mean, 10 to 15,000 pounds is not small money, And I know you come from a humble background, from my understanding. So being able to do that, you kind of believed in yourself and believed in the opportunity that was laying ahead. So I think that's a very key takeaway.
Well, why do you think of that? Just thoughts on that. Yeah, I don't know if I had confidence that the concept worked.
Yeah.
And so getting an idea of other people doing it and seeing who those people were, and quite honestly being like, I'm not being funny. If they can do this, among me,
I know what you mean.
then
No, you're
I
completely
should
right.
be able to make money.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a lot of people in this industry who manage to make money, and you
Mm.
think you shouldn't be able to, but you are. And it's one of those where I had the confidence that I would be able to learn, but that was it. I think not many people have this idea of you invest in your education to de-risk something. Like it doesn't make sense to me how people don't see that. But for me, that is, if you choose the right mentor or educator, by paying them, you get to learn from all the mistakes and losses and wins that they've had without having to go through the pain of it yourself.
Yeah.
So, and I say this about so many things, like people who pioneer things and are the first to do them are the ones who bear the burden of making all the mistakes, getting it all wrong. But then you just get to, if for some people, if you get the opportunity, you get to stand on the shoulders of those giants and say, look, the wisdom that you've gained from the difficulty of going through this first time, I am in receipt of the benefits of that, because you get to tell me, don't do that, don't do this, make sure you do this. And if I'm willing to pay for it, then it means that I don't have to go through that same pain. I should just be in a position where it's predominantly upside.
Fully agree. So we've got a few takeaways there. We've got opening your eyes to what's around you and having a mentor, and sometimes paying for that too. I guess a lot of people now, they see property as a get rich quick scheme, and it's not. You've
It's
just said
so
that,
slow.
yeah.
It's so
very
slow. It really
I'm
is.
glad that you're saying it.
No, it really is, because a lot of people think if you get into property and they do something like deal packaging, that they're going to get paid instantly. Well, you could get a deal secured. You still have to wait till it completes before you know you're going to get paid. And so that could be 6 months.
Yeah.
So you
Brilliant.
start today, but you might not get paid for 6 months. And you're always getting paid for the work that you've done previously. So I'm now getting paid. Tomorrow we're completing on a couple of houses. We did all the work for that before Christmas.
Yeah.
And now we get paid for it. So you have to be able to know that you're in it. And that's not even long term. 6 months isn't long term, but people think they're going to start today and get paid next week. It's very rare that that happens.
And that's a really good point, the difference between being employed and being self-employed, doing your own thing, because you're used to having a salary every week, every month, and this is different. So that perspective is obvious, maybe common sense, like you said, but people may not recognize that.
And I want to touch on something. I know when we were walking to the studio, you mentioned something to me. You said you believe you potentially left your day job a bit too early. I just would like you to expand a little bit more on that.
Yeah, so I worked for a charity, brilliant charity, such a great place to work. Gave me a decent salary, especially for the charity world.
Yeah.
And I got so excited about getting into property and was around people that probably were egging me on too early to quit my job. So I'd started packaging and selling deals and making money from that. And I got so excited by that I quit my job, not really thinking about, and this is the big hindrance, is you can't get a mortgage without proof of income. So if you're getting paid a salary by an employer, you only need 3 months pay slips to be able to get a mortgage. As soon as you quit that job and you go self-employed, you need 2 years, typically, maybe 1, but usually 2 years of profitable books to show you have a proven track record of income before you can start borrowing money from a bank. So it set me back on my portfolio purchases because I couldn't get a mortgage. So everything I did had to be cash, investor finance, or bridging loans, and I had to sell everything. So that's how it hindered me.
So what would be your advice for someone that is starting the property business and they seem to a little bit of profits and they're thinking to leave their job? What would be your guidance on when to do it and potentially what to look out for?
I would think about where you want to be and how soon. It's surprising how much you can get done alongside a job. One of my clients was a consultant for HSBC, was on, must have been well into 6 figures doing that. And he, on the side, built up a property portfolio of about 25, 30 houses.
Amazing.
Wow.
In the space of about 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
So he really knew what he was doing. Yes, he had a well-paid job, but he didn't quit his job until his salary was completely replaced by rental income, rental profit. And I always think about that and think, if you've got it in you, just push on for 2 years. If you can have a job where on your lunch breaks you can be calling agents, or if you can just drop down to 4 days a week and the salary's still good, you've got to think you can borrow typically 4.5 times to maybe 5 times your annual salary. So every time you drop a day, every time you take a pay cut to release more time, you're reducing how much you can borrow.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking, I want to buy some buy-to-lets, I want to buy HMO, I want to, borrow money from the bank to buy property, I would suggest stay in your job as long as you can until it's genuinely unbearable, and then leave. If you're like, do you know what, I don't want to have a property portfolio, I want to run a property business, I want to do rent to rents, or I want to do deal packaging, or I want to flip houses, and I'm going to use cash, and I've got a big pot of cash here, and I know I'm good to go, and I've got 6 months to a year buffer of cash in the bank as a salary in case it all went wrong. Go for it, like quit your job. But if your idea is I'm going to buy a house, renovate it, refinance it, rent it out, and that's going to cover my salary, well, the average buy to let, a single let, is going to make you £250 to £300 profit a month. Right. It's going to take a lot of those to replace a salary, especially if you're thinking you could probably maybe do 1 or 2 a year. So, and even that's a pretty good pace for someone who's starting out. It's going to take a long time. So I would just say stay in your job until it's unbearable. You'd be surprised how much you can do when you're in a job, because once you've got the deal agreed, there's not a whole lot to do. Once it's in legals, it's just an email to your solicitor every now and then saying, where's it up to? Do you need me to sign any documents? And you're really not doing a lot. So unless you want to start a property business, just stay in your job, in my opinion.
That's good advice. Yeah, that's really good advice. Right. Shall we move on to then, I guess, so you've spoken about property business. So that's more what you look at, right? So there's, on your channel, you talk us about flipping a lot. And that's, I guess, maybe where you started the deal packaging, flipping. Can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, sure. So I started, as I said, that first deal I did was a house flip. So we bought a house, really simple cosmetic refurb. How I would describe a cosmetic refurb. It's a 3-bed terraced house in Birmingham. We bought it. We ripped out all the carpets, ripped out the kitchen, the bathroom, put a new kitchen, bathroom in, painted, carpets, job done. A little bit of plastering. That was it. No central heating, no new boiler, no electrics, nothing like that. It was just pure cosmetic renovation. So we did that, made a profit. I realised this is actually, I can do this. I think there's not as much to this as I thought, and now I've been quite hands-on with it. I think I know what I'm doing. So I then went on and bought my second property, which was, again, another flip. And so I bought that. It was a house in Wigan. That was £95,000, or it might have been 90. I can't remember. It might have been 95 all in, including stamp duty and everything. We spent £27,000 doing it up, and we sold it for 185.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a good
That's
one.
Good.
Yeah,
Very good.
for my second one, it was pretty good. I was pretty happy with it. Used investor finance for that one, leveraging what I'd done in the first one. So I took loads of photos, videos around that first deal that I did, and I said to friends, family, I said, look what I've been able to do. Look at the money we made. Do you want to put money in? I'll give you, a percentage return on your investment. So we raised about £70,000 on that second deal, and I gave them 10% back, and it was about a 6-month turnaround. So they made £7,000 in 6 months for a bank transfer.
Very
It's
good.
pretty good for them.
Yeah.
And then obviously we did pretty well off the profits as well. And then off the back of that, somebody reached out to me and said, you look like you're doing quite a lot of property deals. The actual phrase they put on the message was, you're doing a lot in property and you must come across quite a few property deals, but I know you can't buy them all. I can buy them all, and I'll buy them cash. And I was like, this guy's pretty up himself, isn't he? Flipping it. He's pretty confident. And I thought he was just rude, so I just ignored him. And then I found this house. It was in a place called Runcorn, which is near, it's northwest. It's near Liverpool, in between Liverpool and Manchester, towards like St Helens, I think. I'm not too sure really, but I found this house, 3-bed terraced house. I'd got it agreed for about £73,000, and this guy just popped into my head because this deal came up and I didn't have the money. My funds were tied up in other projects. This deal came across my table and I thought, this is a good one, but I can't buy it. So I thought, worst case scenario, I can't buy it, and it doesn't work out. Best case scenario, this guy actually might be serious, and he might actually buy it. So no contracts, no nothing. I just sent him the deal and said, look, I've got this agreed at this price. Do you want to buy it? He then messaged back saying, yep, sure, I'll buy it cash. How much do you want for it?
So he hadn't met you yet?
No, this was over Facebook messages, and he
Wow.
didn't have his face on the profile. Yeah, it was super dodgy. I was like, I have no idea who this guy is. I met up with him later, and he is like an actual human being. But he was like, yeah, I'll buy it. How much do you want for it? And I thought, oh, what do you say here? And I just thought, what is the biggest number I can think of? I was like, I want $5,000. And he said, cool, send me your bank details and I'll send it over to you. And yeah, he just transferred £5,000. And I was like, $5,000 for sending an address and some photos to somebody
Over Facebook.
who I've never met before.
Yeah.
But like loads of people think when you're getting into deal packaging, and for people who don't know what it is, it's finding properties, getting them secured at a good price, packaging it up into like, you get a nice investment pack with the photos and the floor plan and descriptions, and you negotiate at a great price and you present it to an investor and say, look, I've got this deal here. Do you want to buy it from me? They then pay you a fee. You're essentially an estate agent, but you represent the buyer getting the deal rather than representing a seller selling a house. So that's what that was. People think you have to come up with these really nice investment packs. I literally sent a Facebook message with an address and a couple of photos on it, and that was it. And I got paid $5,000.
Yeah.
And it was then that I kind of thought, do you know what, I was skeptical about deal packaging, but this clearly is an actual legit way of making money. Let's see what happens. And for the next kind of 6 months, I started just sourcing deals just for him, just getting discounted houses for him, and just getting paid $5,000 every time. So that he was my first client and the only client I had for a very long time.
That's cool. I think what I see there, so you've done your education, and then you've presented what you're doing, what you've done, and that's what gains someone's trust, right? So it's really important when people are starting to constantly share, because the guy didn't know you, but he trusted you.
Yeah, and he came to me. The other thing about deal packaging, interesting you say about the trust thing, because a lot of people who want to get into deal packaging, I always say to them, your experience is actually completely irrelevant. Because if somebody is an educated investor and they're a serious investor, no matter what you say to them, that shouldn't sway whether they buy a deal or not. It shouldn't be that I have to convince you that a property deal is good for you to buy it from me. It should be that
It's a good deal.
get presented the deal, you run your own numbers, you do your own due diligence, you look at the house condition, you look at how much you think it would cost to renovate, you look at what other houses are selling for in the area, and you go, yeah, that actually stacks, that's a good deal, so I'll buy it. It shouldn't just be, this is a really good deal, you make so much profit on this. Okay, great. Any serious investor isn't going to take your word for it, they'll do their own due diligence. And so your experience is irrelevant, the deal is what matters. And that's what I was saying. I think that's more the reason why. I don't think he trusted me. I think he knew how to do his due diligence.
Interesting.
And he just wanted me to send him like deals, send him leads. He would run his own numbers, and if it stacked, he'd pay me for it.
That's interesting, and that's a good perspective, like looking at it from the other side. I like that. Okay. What are you saying?
So now I'm very keen to see and understand what happens next. So now you've got your first investor. You've done quite.
Oh, sorry about that.
So I see you stalking once again.
Going crazy.
So now you got your first investor. You did a bit of deal packaging, and it would be good potentially to kind of take us on the journey from there. Because now you've been involved with quite a lot of transactions. How did you do it? Because you yourself doing it on your own potentially would have taken a lot of time. So how did you go about doing that?
So from that point, working with that one investor, I realised that it was a scalable business. And so started to continue doing a few flips myself. But because they were, you buy a house, you renovate it, you sell it, it takes maybe 6 months if you're fast. So it's not a quick process. Alongside that, if I can be selling 2-3 deals a month, making an extra £10,000-15,000 to pay my salary and cover costs and things like that, then great. So that was my mindset, and I thought, do you know what, why don't I just do that? So I did that for a while, just with that one client. And then I found that more people were getting in touch with me to say, could you find me find me a property deal. So I then set up a YouTube channel, created a lot of content around it, stood outside of a house and just said, hey, if you're interested in getting property deals like this one, sign up to our email deal
chain,
email
yeah.
list, whatever it is. And if you're, we'll send out property deals, and if you're interested, you can buy them from me. Of that one video, that video just did really well by itself, and we got 1,000 investors signed up.
Wow.
Off that one video, and it's continued. Our investor list has continued to grow from there.
Mm.
I think our investor list itself has something like just shy of £1 billion worth of value in terms of
Incredible.
how much money they've said that they are ready to invest. So combined, so it's pretty exciting. And from there, I just thought, this just works. This works so well. And to be honest, my focus shifted then from flips to just keeping up with sourcing and chasing the next fee, which is good and it works really well. But I was saying to you earlier, it's quite hard to scale that when all you're doing is majorly discounted houses, because they're few and far between.
That's right.
Even more so now than they were when I started. And so if I'm getting paid £5,000 for every heavily discounted house that I find, it's maybe a well-paid job. It's not a scalable business where we can take on staff and we can grow it. So I thought to myself, there's got to be two ways in which we can grow this. Either I've got to take on more staff and I've got to grow a big team out, and we've just got to do volume. We've got to sell loads, a bit like an estate agent. They don't get paid a lot.
They don't.
Really, they actually don't. They get paid maybe 1% of a property value. So, and even out of that, the person who actually sells it might get 20 quid commission for selling a house. So it's really not good. Which in my head, I was like, I don't want that. I don't want razor thin margins. I don't want a big team. I want to keep it really small. I thought, how can I, with the smallest team possible, how can I make £1 million a year? That was my thought process. How can I make £1 million every year with a team of one or two?
How did you get to that number? £1 million a year with
I just put that number out. I think. No, as in, I thought to myself, if I want to scale this from making £250,000 a year, how can I make £1 million without taking on more staff?
Fair enough. Yeah.
Well, the only answer was do more deals or make more money per transaction.
Yeah.
So now I was telling you earlier, we do a bit of a hybrid model where we find deals, we get them secured, we buy them super cheap, and we sell them to our investors. Or we just do the sourcing fees as and when it's required. We also sometimes manage projects, although I'm probably going to step away from that because that is a nightmare. When you're scaling up to be managing 5, 6, 7, 8 refurbs at a time, it's not good. It's really stressful. So, and very time consuming, and it doesn't contribute towards making £1 million a year. So I just thought, how do I make as much money with as little and as small a team as possible? And that's where I landed. So we now do, again, hybrid model. So we buy stuff in really cheap and sell it onto investors, or we just source as many deals as we can. We also do a bespoke service where if somebody comes to me and says, I want you to find me something in this area, this price range that returns this much money, we'll then take the fee off them up front. We then have 30 days to go and find that deal, or they get their money back plus 500 quid for wasting their time. That's our offer.
Got you.
So as soon as you get someone on the phone and you pitch that to them, they found me because they found me on social media. They've reached out to me because they're actually serious about buying. And what I'm offering them is either the deal that you tell me you want, or 500 quid after 30 days. It's a bit of a no-brainer.
That's
Deal.
right,
Yeah. it's a
So
very good deal.
so we get a lot of clients through that.
Yeah. You're confident then because you're willing to give them back £500 in 30
Yeah,
days.
I wouldn't take on a client if I didn't know for 100% certainty that we could find the house.
Yeah. Where's your patch? You might not want to answer that completely, but how did you find your patch potentially?
I don't believe in patches.
Yeah, that's what I thought because it
Yeah.
sounded like you were
I'm all over the
everywhere.
place.
Yeah.
I don't believe in a patch. Loads of people say, find your patch. And I agree to an extent because I think some people, depending on what you want to do, it works well. A friend of mine has built out a really good sized portfolio in Stockport
Okay.
because it's a great area. He's managed to buy 20, 30 houses in the space of 2 or 3 years. The problem with that is you limit yourself from opportunities. So for me, it was less of there's areas that I really like, and more just I don't want to cut myself off from a good deal. So I will entertain deals anywhere. We've got deals going on in Gainsborough, Worksop. We've got deals up in Barrow in Furness, Manchester, Birmingham. I will typically just say Midlands and above. I'll look at anything,
Wow.
and if it's a good deal, it's a good deal.
How do you do that logistically? Do you go to view it yourself, or do you send someone
No,
else, or is
I
it
don't go and view it.
tabletop?
If it's local, I'll go and view it. If not, I'll send someone to go and view it for me. There's a really good company called Viewber, viewber.co.uk. You can sign up and get people to go around to properties and do video walkthroughs, survey reports for super, super cheap. Well, I say super cheap, like 100, 150 quid, which
For your
me,
time.
I'd rather
Yeah, rather
stay at
than-
home and carry on with more work and find the next deal and spend 150 quid sending someone around to a house in Birmingham than spending the day driving down and back up to look at a house. So
I like that. That's refreshing. You don't have a patch.
no,
say.
I don't. There's areas that I really like and there's areas that I really don't like. But the reality is, because especially what I do is I buy and sell, it's irrelevant where it is. If it's a really good area,
It works.
then it sells. If it's a really bad area, it sells. It just depends on the price. As long as you price it right, anything sells.
That's right.
So you could go to a really rundown area of Blackpool, and you buy a terraced house where all the terraced houses on the street have sold for 80k. Again, profits in the purchase. If I pick that up for 50, then I'm making money. It's irrelevant where it is. So I'll buy it at 50, I'll sell it for 60, 65, leave something on it for somebody else, and move on to the next one. It's irrelevant where it is, because it's all about, is there a proven track record that this should be worth more than what we're buying it for.
That's really good, actually. Yeah, that's really good. I like that. Thank you. Back to you.
Good. So I'm wondering, so for the people that might be wondering, what does your day-to-day looks like? Obviously, we've spoken about, and I'm going to get into a little bit more of the social media, because I know you did mention about how often you do it, and I wanted to find out how does that impact, obviously, the scalability of your business. But what does your day-to-day kind of look like currently?
Right now, it looks like, so much paperwork. It's so much paperwork. So I will, it varies from day to day. I'm very often in the office or I am just out on the road. So I'm either 100% present or completely not around. So it's rare that I do something like this and jump on a podcast and do fun stuff. It's usually like signing contracts or chasing solicitors, chasing estate agents. A lot of it is that side of things. My wife is incredible. She's just started helping me out with my business, so she's helping me a lot with keeping on top of that stuff because it consumes so much of my time. But it's either looking for deals, chasing up deals that we've already agreed, getting things lined up ready for tenants or housing providers or managing builders, or driving around, checking up on renovations. That's usually it, or filming YouTube videos.
Fantastic. And so now touching on the YouTube videos and all the rest, how much has it helped you? Obviously, I know we spoken about I think a few weeks ago that you said that it helped you at the beginning of your journey. How did you kind of get into it? And how is it still helping you now?
I got into it because I really enjoyed making videos anyway. Like a friend of mine, when I lived in Birmingham, we were 17, 18, I think, or no, probably 18 years old, making videos about going around a shopping centre and stopping off for a Starbucks and just the most random things. But I was like, I just want to film because I love taking a camera out and getting cool cinematic shots and filming like vlogs sort of things. So we were doing that and it was really good fun. But I always thought to myself, what I'm offering to the marketplace is completely non-valuable in that I don't really know what I'm making a video about. It's super, super random. Then when I started property, I thought, I can kind of use this as a creative outlet and a subject matter to film content about. So I thought, as I learn this stuff, I'm going to package it up into content and document the journey and share what I'm learning with other people. I wouldn't have the business that I have today or be anywhere near the level of success. I don't even know if I'd be in property if I didn't have my YouTube channel.
Wow.
Because it's that level of, it's that sort of marketing that completely shifts a business. If you picture it like this, I have the ability to put on a networking event, pull in 100 people to an event, stand up at the front of those 100 people, spend half an hour telling them about everything that I'm doing in property, give them just value after value after value. and then say, and I source property deals if anyone's interested. Those conversations, if you think about the times you've been to a networking event where you're trying to connect with other people, imagine if you'd just been at the front as the expert in the room. Everyone comes to you and they want to do business with you. And it's more like it shifts things from a marketing and a sales point of view, because they're coming to you wanting your business rather than you coming to them trying to pitch your business. Completely shifts the mindset. So from working with an investor, that point of view, it's completely, it sets me head and shoulders above everybody else, because people feel like they know, like, and trust me already because they've seen hours of content. I get people come up to me in the street. I get people coming to my events and saying, I watch all your content. It's amazing. Like, you've helped me so much. And even just that, whether they work with me or not, I've tried to offer as much value as possible so that it builds that know, like, and trust. And I wouldn't have built that level of trust with people if I hadn't provided value to the marketplace for free through YouTube.
No, makes sense. What really stands out to me there is that you said it wouldn't grow if you didn't have your YouTube presence, so just your social media presence. And when we were speaking earlier, you said you're one of the first guys in the UK really to start online doing property, which is a great accomplishment to have, to say I was one of the first guys in that space. That's really cool.
Yeah. There's a few people in the space, people like Samuel Leeds, Saj Hussein, Justin Wilkins started around the same time as me. All really nice guys, spent time with all of them, and they're great. But that was kind of it. Maybe I hadn't come across people, but if they were around, they were super small as well. So I managed to get in around when COVID was happening, create content, and it just meant that whenever anyone was looking for property content, I'd be popping up. And so it meant that the first year of making content, there was a point where we were growing by about 2,000 subscribers a month. And then I just stopped making content for about 6 to 8 months because I just got really burnt out and just stopped, which really hindered the amount of growth that we had. But yeah, we grew fast, really fast, and there wasn't a lot of competition to be working with.
It's great. Right place, right time. No, right place, right time. And burnout's a real thing as well. You have to look after yourself because property and doing all these different things is taxing, right?
Yeah.
So you have to think about that as well.
And you've got to think about where do you balance the offering free value to people and actually making sure you're getting paid. And you can actually get so caught up. I know loads of people who get caught up making content that they then don't get the stuff done needed to make money in their business. And you've got to get a really, really fine balance. You know, I'll miss some weeks making YouTube content because I'm super busy dealing with purchases or renovations, and I've just not got the headspace to be filming it. More of my content now is more come along and check out what I'm doing, because it's almost an easy way to get the content, because rather than setting aside half a day to sit down and talk to a camera, I just say, I'm going to check up on these couple of refurbs, come check it out.
I'd argue that's the right way to do it. Everything's in phases, right? Yeah, so I argue that's the right way to do it. Okay. So you speak to a lot of different people in your podcast, which is really cool. So this is a bit of a hard question. But what's maybe the most, maybe not successful, but someone you've really been inspired by when they've spoken to you?
Oh, that's a good question. That is a good question.
one.
I think season 2, we've just filmed a video with a guy called John Howard. He has personally bought and sold 4,500 properties.
Wow.
In his career. That was impressive.
How old is he?
I don't know. I don't want to offend him.
Okay, let's just
I don't want to
keep it
offend
there.
him.
Older than us.
He's older than me.
Yeah. That's a lot of properties.
But yeah, he's been in the game for I think 34 years.
Wow.
But I mean, still, 1,000 houses a decade is still pretty
crazy.
Impressive.
Yeah. Wow. No, that's really cool. That's really cool. And what's maybe a bit of advice that you've actually applied directly to yourself as well?
From the podcast. Excuse me. I think a few people. One of the things that I find interesting about the people that I've interviewed is that most of them practice what they preach, and they are really good at what they do. And the people that are doing big stuff, they think big. They think very differently.
Yeah.
So, there will be people who will have squirmed or thought it was awkward when I said, how do I make $1 million a year with a team of one or two? Because that's the way we're wired. We're wired to be really conservative and making sure, you don't be too ambitious. That's greedy. But the people who achieve it, the people who are audacious enough to believe it, and so those people that I've spoken to, I'm like, you genuinely believe that you are going to make 100 million, a billion, or 500 million, whatever, huge amounts of money. And so the people who actually have the ambition to believe in it, and it means that once you believe it, you alter the way that you live. And by altering the way that you live, you start taking action towards making it happen. And I've applied that, and it's really worked. It's worked really well. When you shift how you think and you open up what you think is possible, it's crazy what you think can be done. I started this thinking, oh my word, I flipped a house, I made 50 grand. What if I could do that once a year? That would be amazing. And it would be. Like, that actually is incredible. If someone lives a life where they just flip a house once a year and make 50, 60K, that is a phenomenal achievement, and it's brilliant. But if you go, right, okay, well, how do I make 100,000? How do I make 200,000? How do I make $1 million? How do I make 10 million? How do I make 20 million a year? You have to think differently, and by thinking differently, you take different action, and you start to see the results of those.
Definitely.
Fantastic. And before we get into something that I think that's very dear to your heart and my heart, what's your vision now? What do you want to achieve? What's your ambition?
Ooh. Are you talking like a number? Or are you talking about
numbers,
just
maybe properties, maybe revenue, maybe life, just in general? But what is the big picture that gets you up every single morning and then you thrive toward?
It's interesting you asked me this, because I'm in a stage where I think that's really shifted in the past few days.
Wow.
Even. I think I would have said that I want to be able to get 500 houses, 1,000 houses, and just have a good rental property portfolio and live off of the income, and have a staff member or two to manage them all, and go and just do whatever I want to do. But it's actually, I started thinking about that towards the middle of last year, and we are really taking steps to build up a portfolio now. But the more we get and the more we achieve, the more I'm like, even if we achieve that, it doesn't mean anything. Like, what does that mean to own 10 houses, 100 houses, 500 houses? What does that actually mean? And so it felt pretty hollow, and I just had a bit of a revelation where I just felt like my life needs to work towards positive impact and change in the world. So exactly what that looks like right now, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm on a journey of trying to figure that out. What my aim and objective is to love my family, to love my church, and to just live as good and as positive and impactful of a life, and help as many people as I can.
That's fantastic. And I know you had we were sharing about it when talking just earlier on, but you had an experience where what we call in the Christian world a prophetic word, which is, for those that might not know what chain is, whenever you have the Holy Spirit, God Himself speaking and revealing you something about yourself, or giving you an insight or a guidance very specific. And I know we both believers, we're both Christians. I think it's part of the reason also we connected. Can you tell me a little bit about potentially the shift that's happening, having had that revelation, and how do you see business and you being a Christian coming together?
Definitely. So I think it comes back to what I was saying just before, is that it's got to mean something.
Yeah.
I know so many people who have these big, lofty ambitions for their business, and I also know people who have achieved those ambitions, and they just say, I always remember the quote Jim Carrey says, "I wish everybody could become rich and famous to realise that it's not the answer."
Wow.
And it's that same thing of, like, actually you can have these materialistic goals and dreams and ambitions, and that's amazing, and it's not like your life won't change, to have that level of wealth, to have that kind of income, to have that level of access to finance is just is great. But it's just money. It doesn't actually matter, and if I lost it all tomorrow, I actually don't think I'd care that much. And so this kind of revelation that I had, it was somebody who I was at a Christian event, and a guy came up to me and he said he felt like I needed to step away from a few things and step into more of what God was calling me into, and I really felt that related to my business and helping other Christians, helping people on this journey of growing a business and having an impact on the world. And the phrase that keeps coming to my mind, and I don't know if I've heard it from somewhere or if it's just something that has just been inspired by God in my own mind, but it's I want to help kingdom people build kingdom business to sow into kingdom mission. And that's just something I've been thinking about the last few days, and
Powerful.
it gets me excited, and it gets me, I know people, and since then, the last couple of days, I've connected with people who were investment bankers and were making £1 million a month in their business, and then they lost it all, and they felt like God brought them out of that and said, I want you to change your life. And now they are, they're doing incredible charitable things, saving thousands of people's lives all over the country. And you just think, what the heck, that is so good. It makes you think, wow. And to think for the past few years, I've just wanted some buy-to-let houses. Like, why does it matter? You can actually genuinely change people's lives if you put this skill. And I genuinely think that the world can be changed, not by everybody quitting their jobs and starting charities, but through entrepreneurship, through actual business, creating good, profitable, sustainable business to sow into people, to sow into places, to sow into areas that need it. And I think it can change the world. So yeah, I don't know. It's not exactly like, oh, I've landed on this one thing, but those are just some thoughts that I feel like I've been having over the past few days, and it's definitely caused a bit of a shift in my own head.
Yeah. I think you're completely right. There's one thing that really occurred to me is business actually is the basis of actually loving one another, and I realized that when I read a book from a person called Daniel Lapin, and he basically breaks down business in terms of biblical principles. And when you actually realize about it, whenever you're working with someone, even in the property business, what you really want is solving their problem so that they can have a better future, or even in their own perspective. And from that, creating that kind of ecosystem where you're able to help someone, but also they're helping you by having that transaction of money, you're able then to sow into other places. And I know we've spoken about also a little bit, and then you start to explore about how your business can start to be providing help, as you say, to missions and to churches and to different things. And what would you say to someone that's a believer, that's a Christian, of course, they want to get into business? What do you think they should be looking at? Some people will look at the money, but see, you just explained that money is not everything. So what do you think they should be aiming for whenever they start a business as a believer?
I think, to be honest, what you should do as a believer is kind of the same thing you should do if you're not a Christian anyway, is what's the problem in the world that you want to solve? And for a Christian, that might be something a bit more spiritual, and it might be something more God-centered. For other people, it might be that they want to solve other problems. Whatever it is, a lot of it comes from story and experience. If you have had particular struggles in a certain area, or if you've had a really challenging time in your life, often that can birth something in you that is almost like people really struggle with this, and I want to be the person to solve that problem and make a difference in the world. And I think those are the best businesses, because they're the ones that come from a place of authenticity. They're the ones that genuinely solve a problem and therefore provide value. And when you provide value in the marketplace, you can get paid from it. And so if you're solving problems, then you can monetize that in some way and be able to pay for it and fund the mission. And for some people, if you're a Christian, that might be something more Christian focused and God focused. And for other people, it might just be that you had a really tough experience as a young person, and so you want to do something to change that and make a difference. But it all depends.
No, this part of the conversation is really exciting to me, because it's all about your purpose, your passion, what's the core of what you're doing. And that's so important when we start to think bigger as well, because you bring it with you. And I think sometimes the trap that Christians or people who have a spiritual belief may fall into is they can do either or. But you're talking about bringing it together because we can do both.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do both.
Yeah, and that was a big revelation for me, that actually I was, you know, I go to church on a Sunday, and I, you know, have Christian friends that I hang out with, but, you know, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, that's my business hours, and I put my business hat on, and actually your life doesn't need to look like that. You can just be authentic through and through, and live out your faith in business, and more importantly, your business can be impacted by your faith. I mean, I've started working 4 days a week on my business, because 1 day a week I just work for my church for free, because I can do that, and that for me is a massive thing, and it's a real blessing. Just a small little step into what I feel
No, it's not
my
small.
purpose
That's
is.
great. Yeah, not small at all. That's really cool. Yeah. Okay. All right. No, that's really good. I'm just thinking about lots of different things about what you've said. And I believe it will really encourage people to think about what their core is and then kind of work from there as well. We don't have to kind of do things outside and think, oh, how can I fit this in? It's just who we are. It just all works together.
That's the thing. And I think, as we discussed a little bit, is you can't really separate the two. You know, if you're one person, if you're a believer, if you're a disciple of Christ, it really transcends into everything. And sometimes, you know, we can have the mindset that business can only be, how can I say that, one way, or we have to do business that everyone else is doing it. But realistically, you bringing yourself to the business in your authenticity is actually a huge USP. We shared so many different stories about how that's helped yourself and both myself as well. So when it comes to balancing both being Jack Smith for the people, Jack Smith for the church, Jack Smith for the family, what's been really your experience when it comes to really trying to, because you're not just understanding yourself as a business person, but you also understand yourself as a person, as a believer, as a father now. So how was that journey for you? That kind of, you know, journey to understanding who's Jack Smith, because you shared a little bit about what you want to do now, which is exciting.
That's a loaded question, isn't it?
A huge question. Have we got 2 hours?
Lots of loud.
Well, I'm literally starting to think well now.
No. I think becoming a dad is obviously a massive thing, because it does make you think from this child's most authentic and innocent view. How do they view me? How, you know, am I acting the way that I would want them to see me act, and am I doing business the way that I'd want them to learn to do business, and am I, you know, loving my family the way that I want her to know, and that impacts things a lot, because it makes you shift up and go, right, no, this like, my life needs to look different, because I'm actually responsible for a human being now. This is bonkers. That made a big impact. But blending the whole family, business, faith element, I think one of the issues that I've had is that I've seen them all as separate, and it's more of a mindset shift of actually who I am to my family is because of who I am, who I'm made to be by God, and who I am as a businessman is influenced by who I am made to be by God. And so I think God just weaves himself through all of it, and I think it's more of a mindset shift, that it's not that, you know, I'm a businessman, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, and I also, you know, I'm also a Christian. It's actually, no, that kind of covers all of it, and that impacts how everything works. And yeah, so for me, it was definitely just a mindset shift that had to change.
It's a very powerful mindset shift. Very powerful.
Well, I'm very, very new in that headspace, but it's it's exciting.
It's life changing.
It really is, and I think it just, again, like I say, it just gives you that level of purpose and drive that's different to anything before. Like, buying a certain number of houses, surely, maybe it's just me, but I just thought that isn't going to motivate me forever. Because when you get to that figure, well, it just is what it is. Or doing a certain size deal, or, you know, every time you do something or you achieve your goal, you just go, oh, that was good. Kind of need to get the new big goal now. And constantly chasing that materialistic goal is just, it just gets exhausting after a while. And so it's made a big impact on me. I had, as I said, this phrase going around in my head. I want to help kingdom people build kingdom businesses to fund and sow into kingdom mission, and that is a massive, massive thing for me. And that has been what's shifted in my own head. And funnily enough, I was like, do you know what? I need to just be all in on this stuff. So I went to the gym the other day. This was the day after this phrase was going around in my head, and I thought, how does that work? How does that look? Like, God, like, give me a sign of how that can look. And I took my Bible with me to the gym, and just before I went into the gym, I sat in my car, and I was like, God, what do you want me to read in this? And I genuinely felt like he said, I want to encourage you. So and I don't normally do this, and I don't encourage people to do this because it's not the proper way to read a Bible. But I just opened it on a random page, and I always find it funny when people say this, but genuinely, my eyes were just drawn to this paragraph that literally was just saying, it named a couple of women that went around that followed Jesus during his ministry, and it said that these women were business women, and they ran businesses to fund Jesus' ministry. That was it. It was literally that big, and that's the only bit where it talks about it in the whole Bible, and it said it there on the page that I opened. I was like, that's it. It's kingdom business, kingdom people to do kingdom business, funding kingdom mission, and it felt really encouraging at the time, and it's definitely contributed as this kind of snowball effect into what I feel maybe God's calling me into.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really cool. You said you're at the start, but you've had some very deep thoughts that are really going to prop up everything.
It's hilarious. This was literally Sunday and Monday. This was Monday this week.
And we're on Thursday.
We're Thursday. And I'm just having all these mad experiences that are just contributing towards this massive mindset
God's
shift. So.
It's cool. He's always moving. But yeah, that's really cool. Wow. I feel like you've got another deep question in you.
No, not really. I mean, obviously, you posted a few things about Christian Network and all the rest. I know when we spoke about it, you see you're still trying to figure out how does that look like. But do you have really like an aim for the people that will join into the network, and what would that mean to them, and what they'll be able to get out of it?
Well, exactly like you say, it's super early days. On Monday, I had this big old revelation. The last few days, I've just been thinking, how can I implement that? How could that look? And one of the ideas is that, do I start a Christian business networking, a kind of thing where maybe we pull people together for a conference, get a few people together, we run a conference once a year? Do we run like a network where we meet up once a month? Do we meet on Zoom? Do we gather in different areas of the country? Do we provide coaching? I have no idea. I've got so many ideas, but I also don't want to overcomplicate it. And exactly how that looks right now, I don't know. Whether it's even going to happen, I don't know. But it feels like things are starting to come together and piece together for how that could work and how that could look. The big thing for me, again, it's that slogan of how can I help? How can I make that happen? How can I support people in building these businesses that can then sow into amazing different, missional charities and businesses and that sort of thing. So ultimately, what I want to offer and what I'm trying to figure out is, what do Christian business owners need to help them grow and scale their businesses? Because if I can help them do that, or if I can pull in people who can help them do that, then I want to be able to, because I want to get behind the mission of their own business and get behind what they're passionate about.
That's really good. We were talking to someone on the weekend actually who has a group, and he mentors CEOs. I can't remember, was he a Christian or not?
He was a believer.
Yeah. And so he is steering, and the people who are the CEOs may not be Christians, but he's doing it from that mindset. And it's a very successful, thriving business. So maybe it could look like something like that. There's so many things you could do. And I think we took his contact so we can connect you up with him, because that would be really cool as well.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. And we're made to succeed. And I really want people who are listening to this to think bigger. Like you said, we have to just keep thinking bigger. And this is a great example of it. So we're behind it.
Yeah.
If you're doing it, we're fully behind it.
Thank you. It's crazy, isn't it? Because I think the world we live in, Christians so often bang on about the love of money is the root of all evil, and people hear that all the time. We bash people over the head with it, but there's a big difference. I know it's cliche and it's said a lot, but it's true. It's not money is the root of all evil. It's the love of
Love
money.
of
If you
money.
idolize money and you think this is all I'm living for, like I said, it's just hollow and it's empty and it's not going to get you anywhere. But actually, how do we, if we want to go and help people, like we're really blessed to be able to sponsor some kids in Tanzania through a charity called Compassion. You can't do that with no money. You know, it costs money to do that sort of thing. And we give to loads of different things. Our church runs food banks to help people, and we do all sorts of stuff, and we give to our church. And there's so many aspects of life where, in order to make an impact, it needs money.
100%.
And as I say, you read in the Bible, Jesus had people following him around, women who were running successful businesses to fund the mission and the ministry that was happening. So in order for us to enable people to do this stuff and to run the ministry and help people and serve the poor and all that sort of stuff, it needs money. And people think that it's going to come out of thin air. Actually, I think God resources us to enable to make that sort of money. It's just up to us to implement that and then sow it and deploy it into
100%.
the right sort of kingdom missions.
And one thing I want to add to that is we always say something about the Holy Spirit. It's like a cheat code, right? Because we've got a brain, fully functioning brain, so you can work hard, but the Holy Spirit gives you that extra something that just
Like a
propels
brainwave.
it.
Yeah.
So we're in a great position to be successful and help people and change things, because there's a lot of darkness in the world, right? And we're meant to be the light, and there's different ways of being salt and light, and some of that does take money. So
It does. And also, it's just things like, one of the things I was really inspired by and encouraged by, I went home and spoke to my wife about when I met you at the that social housing event, because you were telling me how you've prayed for builders before. You've gone onto site during a renovation, guy's had an injury, you've prayed for him, he's just been healed on the spot. And it's just like, this is what it's about. It's not just about living these comfortable lives, getting comfortable jobs and just coasting through life. Let's make a difference in the world, whatever it looks like, whether it's running a successful enterprise, whether it's praying for someone who needs healing or whatever. Just let's get out there and do it.
100%.
Let's do the stuff.
I feel like unless you've got something, that's a great place to finish.
To wrap it up.
Yeah. Really
But once again, Jack, I want to say a massive thank you. And I'm sure that many people that will be watching this will be inspired. And I mean, there's so much more to come. So I look forward to see what you're going to be doing and where God is taking you. And most importantly, hopefully one day we'll be back again in Mani and spending some more time together.
Definitely. Thanks so much for having me on. It's been so good to chat, and can't wait to hear more about how you guys are progressing over the next few months and years.
Yeah, thank you.